I know not everyone was here last time, so just a quick reminder, we talked about climate change a bit. It's a somewhat misconceived topic, I guess, in the sense that it's not necessarily controversial in terms of scientific evidence, whether or not it's happening. Just generally, the causes are pretty misunderstood or just not really known to a lot of people. So we did, for those of you who weren't here, we did a KWL chart, or the K and W sections. So that's what you know, what you want to know, and then the L, which we theoretically would be filling out later on today if we had a little more time, would be what you learned after the fact. So as far as some things we knew, we just kind of went around, didn't get any right or wrong answers, just kind of wanted to see what the class thought. So what we asked what we thought it might be, and some of the potentials there were global warming, and that it's not just related to temperature, and then causes of it, whatever we think it might be at this point, is that it could be human related or human caused, so by greenhouse gases and fossil fuels, that it was related potentially to a hole in the ozone layer, and that it occurs in natural cycles. And then things that we wanted to know would be how much time do we have left until it's too late. Is it a global or a regional thing or a process? And then some potential solutions, so how we can go about fixing that. So first things first, I kind of just wanted to define climate in general. Anyone want to take a stab at what they think climate is? Just kind of broadly.
The weather over a long period of time, like kind of averaged, I guess, is like the climate of that area.
Gotcha.
So, I don't know, like Florida average is hot, temperate, I guess.
Okay, cool. Anyone want to add anything to that? Cool. So pretty close. Climate in general, the kind of the easy broad definition would be the average precipitation and temperature of a specific region. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to write everything up. So that's climate. So then climate change would be just kind of the changes over time in a long-term change, in terms of both precipitation and temperature in any given region. And so this kind of touches on the idea of global versus regional. So climate change can occur really at both of those scales. And the way we're talking about it now in relation to global warming is that climate change does occur in these natural cycles that we kind of threw out. So to give a very basic graph, so we're just going to put time here and CO2. So carbon dioxide is what's known as a greenhouse gas. It's generally the most well-known. Anyone mind giving their idea of what they think a greenhouse gas is? Doesn't have to be right. Just think it might be.
I'd say the gases that help keep the warmth, help keep it reflected back into the earth and keep it from escaping back out to outer space.
Yeah, as far, like generally speaking, greenhouse gases, they kind of form this layer in, I believe, the lower part of the atmosphere, and as heat that has both come into the atmosphere and that's radiated from the earth kind of moves out into the atmosphere, the greenhouse gases produce what's called the greenhouse effect, and they kind of radiate that warmth back down into the earth, so they keep it in the atmosphere. So without that, all the heat would just kind of escape. So greenhouse gases it's like a blanket around the earth almost. So CO2 is just one of many greenhouse gases. It's kind of considered the base unit almost. And so over time, so we all know that plants produce CO2. They breathe CO2 and produce oxygen, and we do the reciprocal, or the opposite. And so seasonally, you'd imagine that as between winter and summer, you kind of see these peaks and troughs in terms of CO2 production and this kind of levels in the atmosphere. So over time, you kind of get the seasonality to it. And I know some people have said that in long-term time, climate change kind of the average temperature will go up, and then the average temperature will go back down, and the average temperature will go up. And that's largely related to the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere and how much of the warmth of the earth is kind of reflected back at it. And so over time, you kind of see, so right now, it's going up a little bit over time, and up a little bit. And so that's a pretty normal thing. But what global warming is referring to is kind of this rate of change, and how much it's going up has increased drastically, even in the past 50, probably now 70 years or so. So what we're seeing now is more of this, and so on exponentially. So it's this right here that, I guess I should extend this, is what people are referring to as global warming. And it's happening at a relatively unprecedented rate. So it's not that the climate is changing. We've seen that plenty before. We've had ice ages and things like that. That's just how fast it's happening that's concerning. So that's pretty much what it is. But as far as the causes and outcomes, so one of the first things is that a lot of people think it's related to the hole in the ozone layer. And they're related, but one isn't necessarily the cause of the other. So the ozone layer is actually a little bit higher in the atmosphere. So it's like 1 or 2 levels up, I believe. I'm not totally an atmosphere guy. But so there has been a hole in the ozone layer, and that's kind of been related to releasing chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs. You guys may or may not have heard of those. And those do act as a greenhouse gas, a very potent one. So they have increased the greenhouse effect, but we've pretty much stopped their production and their release into the atmosphere. And so the ozone hole is actually kind of shrinking. So we've pretty much covered that. And while CFCs are a greenhouse gas, the hole in the ozone layer itself, that lets radiation in, but it hasn't contributed to like climate change and global warming on its own. So they're related in the gases involved, but not in their effect on the planet. So going on from there, so we talked a little bit about greenhouse gases. Does anyone know any naturally occurring greenhouse gases besides CO2? There's 3 main ones, so CO2. So greenhouse gases. That was terrible. But got CO2, carbon dioxide.
Like nitrogen? I don't know.
There is a nitrogen gas. Anybody know what it is? Nitrous oxide. So I believe, let's see. And there's one in the middle of those.
Is it like sulfuric or
Not quite. It's a carbon-based gas.
methane?
Yeah, methane. So these are the 3 main naturally occurring ones, and they differ in what's called their global warming potential, or their GWP. And so I've seen a variety of numbers at this point of kind of which is which. But so for all intents and purposes, carbon dioxide has a 1 global warming potential, so that's kind of like the base unit. So then methane, I believe, is 25 times as potent a greenhouse gas as CO2. So pretty much, this is per mole. So 1 mole of methane increases the greenhouse effect 25 times more so than a mole of CO2 would. And then anyone have an idea what NO2 is? What its green or global warming potential would be?
40.
A little higher.
75.
And that's like the low ball estimate. In one of my classes today, actually, I heard that it was 600, and that's a little high for me. But so these are, again, just like kind of rough average estimates. So those are the 3 main ones, and there's actually as these 2 have gone up in terms of emissions in the past few years, nitrous oxide has gone up a little bit, but is drastically lower than the rest, so that's a very good thing for us. But these 2 have been rising pretty significantly, and one thing we're going to get into here in a second is that the release of the 2 kind of play off of each other. So can anyone tell me what a positive feedback loop is?
Back into itself, perpetuate itself.
Yep. So kind of when you have 2 things going on, and then one contributes to the other, and then back and forth between the 2. And so as we've been releasing CO2 in the atmosphere, we've kind of started this positive feedback loop in terms of increased CO2 emissions and increased methane emissions. So without going too much into it, there's what's called these methane traps up in Siberia. And so pretty much as the climate is getting warmer, we're melting these like frozen lakes, and they have anoxic or anaerobic conditions at the bottom, and they start producing methane. And as it gets warmer, they produce more methane, and more methane escapes into the atmosphere. More methane in the atmosphere means temperature gets warmer. So then the whole process just kind of repeats itself. And so touching very briefly in the last few minutes or a few seconds we have in terms of solutions, a lot of people think that if we stop emissions where we are right now, that we'll be able to halt climate change. But really, with the positive feedback loops that we've already started, we we need to do more than just stop emissions. At this point, we need to do sequester carbon, so we need to find ways to pull it out of the atmosphere to really keep, not only stop production, but yeah. Cool. Thank you.